Okay, here we are in part 2 of our course, How to Make Good Videos for Your Course. In this part, we're going to talk about tips and techniques for recording videos. I'm going to share with you some examples, and then we'll go through some specifics. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, when recording screen sharing or webcam videos, or as you see in this example of using a little bit of both, there are several options that you can look at. The first time, if you own a Mac or even older PCs, you have the QuickTime software or QuickTime app, which is very easy to use, works extremely well for recording desktops or webcams. You can't combine them together, but it works well. The only caveat I would say is that I've been told or read somewhere that QuickTime is no longer going to be supported for Windows. So if you're a PC user and you have it, you may still be able to use it, but if you have a newer version of Windows, you may not be able to get it anymore. The other thing is I've run into problems if my videos go over a few minutes. They tend to, sometimes they will stop recording and you don't realize it until after you're done. So keep that in mind too. I've had them do that at 6-7 minutes. ScreenFlow for Mac is a really good option. I've read a lot of good things about it. I haven't tried it personally because I'm trying to stay somewhat budget conscious with this, but I'm thinking very strongly about getting that or the next option I'm going to share with you. It is $99. It only works on a Mac, but from what I've been told, it is one of the best applications for doing recordings such as these, and including the editing portion of it. Camtasia is a step up from that, as I understand it. It is a application that you can use on both a PC or a Mac, but it's $200, so it's a lot more money. But if you do a lot of videos, it may be well worth the cost and investment because there's a lot of things you can do with it. My wife was at a conference this last weekend with one of the schools she teaches at, and she came back talking about all this discussion they had on using Camtasia. So I'm thinking that's probably something we're going to invest in. Screencast-O-Matic is what I'm using for this presentation. You can get it for absolutely free. It does allow you to record either on a webcam, screenshots, or both, as you're watching here. And of course, you've seen that this also has the option to put my face in the middle of the screen to highlight different things, like if I want to emphasize something, or I can even actually miniaturize it back down in the corner, and I can even hide it so I can go away. And all this is done. It just takes a little coordination to be able to do it all at the same time. So, but it works really well. If you want to pay an additional $15, then you have unlimited recording time. There is no watermark across the recording saying it was done on Screencast-O-Matic. You have some editing options. So that is what I've done. $15 a year subscription gives me all those features. And so Screencast-O-Matic is very good and a very good option for those of us that are a little bit budget conscious. So when you're recording a webcam, there's some things to consider. One is to check your environment. You don't want to have any noise and any distractions around. If you've got like a dog that likes to bark, you might want to consider where they're at when you're recording. You don't want to have people in another room watching TV that can be overheard in your recording. Just anything like that. I've turned off my ceiling fan while I'm recording because it can be somewhat of a distraction. So any of those types of things you need to keep in mind. Another thing is lighting. You need to potentially add some light. I brought in a couple of extra lamps. One of them is just a desk lamp right here above me pointing up, which does light up the area around me. In order to avoid casting too much of a glare, I actually have a handkerchief wrapped around it and tied on with a rubber band, and that helps to diffuse the light so it's not too direct and too bright. And then I have another floor lamp off here to the side, and then I have lamps behind me that are lit so that my background is also good. The last thing you want to do before you start recording is check the position of your camera. You want it to be at you don't want to look down into the camera. You don't want to necessarily look up into the camera. I like my camera to be directly in front of me. So I'm using right now a webcam mounted on a tripod. So with that, I'm going to turn this over now to some examples. I've got 4 examples to share with you, and then we'll talk more specifics at the conclusion of that.
Hello, students. This is your instructor with another weekly overview for our class.
Obviously, I'm having a little fun, but I've done some faculty training, and one of the assignments that I've had instructors do is to record a weekly overview, as we've talked about tonight, and submit it as an assignment. And unfortunately, I've seen videos like this. This is typical of a video that's recorded on a laptop with a built-in camera, built-in microphone, which is usually okay. But in this case, the lighting's not very good. The ceiling fan and light above my head is very distracting. It's Sunday afternoon. I'm recording this at the last minute. I have not shaved, so I'm not presenting myself in the same professional manner that I would in an actual classroom. So this is a good example of how not to record a video.
Hello, students. This is your instructor, and I just wanted to share with you a quick video on the assignments that are due this week. And I'm just taking a minute. I grab my cell phone and I just pull it out of my pocket and just recording it right here for your convenience. Now this, I do see videos like this where they're moving around, their hands are shaking, they're not quite holding it up, and there's nothing wrong with recording videos on an iPhone. In fact, iPhones have great recording. The only thing I don't like about them, as you can tell by, as this should look on your screen, is they're very narrow and they don't take up the screen. I mean, I could turn it this way and then it could be that way as well. So, they're not always bad, but you really need to set it on something. I'm holding it in my arm, and I don't know how steady it is, but if you're going to use your cell phone or your iPad to record a video, that's fine. But for one thing, as you can tell, I'm looking at myself in the picture instead of in the camera. I should be looking right there and making eye contact. And it's a little bit harder to do on these little phones. So by all means, use them if you have them. Just, I would set it up somewhere so that it's fairly steady, and I would have to work on the habit of looking into the lens. And of course, the video's probably, or the audio's probably okay, but still, you don't want to be moving around or looking around or looking into the bright, even with the shades down. There's just a lot more to it if you're going to do it something like this. So we'll just leave it at that. Here's another example. This is a step up. In this video, I'm using a webcam. I've actually got it mounted on a small little tripod right in front of me, and it cost all of like $8-9 on Amazon. The webcam's pretty decent. It's a Logitech. I'm using the built-in audio of the webcam. The lighting is a little bit better. Still could be improved to some degree. But the audio, I'll let you be the judge of that. But I still have to clean up and present myself in a better way. So this is a step up, but still could be done a little bit better. Okay, this is the third example, and this is the example I would like to present to you as the proper way to do a video. As you could tell, my lighting is a little better, my sound is a step up, and I've dressed professionally. I think that's important in these videos for our online students especially. We tend to dress and present ourselves in a professional way when we come into the classroom. Well, we need to give the same respect to our students online. So when I record my videos, I tend to put on a decent shirt and a sport coat in the same way that I would when I step into the classroom. You won't see me wear a tie very often, but that's okay. The video is still being recorded with the same webcam. The lighting is a little different in that I have a lamp above me pointing up, which just a simple desk lamp, but I've got it pointing up, and it provides just a little more light in the room, which really does improve the sharpness of the picture.
if you don't have enough light, your video can look a little grainy. The audio, I'm actually using something here. Let me hold it up for you. This is I believe it's a Shure microphone. I'll have to look it up to be sure. But it cost a little bit of money, and I'll show you more about that in another slide. But as you can tell, it makes a big difference in the audio. And, I do have it plugged in through my mixing board that I use for my podcast, but there are other ways to do it. You can get similar microphones that will plug by USB cord straight into your laptop or your desktop. The other thing I want you to realize too is the glare that comes off of your computer monitors. In fact, I forgot to turn down the brightness on one of them. Let me show you the effect. So when you turn down the glare or turn down the brightness of your computer monitor, it actually will take the glare off your face. And especially me, I wear glasses. When I've got my monitors, I've got two big 27-inch monitors in front of me. And when they're both on full brightness, as normal, they create quite a glare in my glasses, and then you can't see my eyes. And I think that's important too. So watch that. Whether you're recording on your laptop or a desktop, turn the brightness down on your monitor and see if that makes a difference in the lighting and exposure and things like that. One more point about the audio. Usually the webcam audio is pretty good, and I would recommend you use that. If you do want to invest and step up the audio, it is worth it. In my studies and watching and learning about this, there's a lot said about audio when it comes to video. You would think the video is the most important part, but actually the audio is, in addition to the content, of course. But when you've got good audio, people will ignore a little bit of faults in the video. But if somebody cannot hear the sound clearly and it doesn't come across in a good, pleasant tone, then they will tend to ignore the video as well. So that's why I've invested in the microphone. There's other options, as I'll share with you later. This is just one, but just pay attention to the audio. That's all I guess I'm asking. So this is my example of how a video should look. Again, the good presentation, decent lighting, decent audio, and then do what I don't do, which is plan an outline. I tend to just kind of wing it and end up recording things 2 or 3 times. But that's your personal learning style. That's how it works for me. But I hope you appreciate some of the things that go into making a good quality video that your students will appreciate. Okay, there you go. There were some examples of, I'm recreating videos that I've seen from other instructors, so you get an idea of what's out there. So I hope you can appreciate the effort that goes into, as I said in my last video there, to making a decent video. But it's not that difficult. It's just you need to know how to do it. That's all it is. So now let's talk about some recording requirements. And I got these from the CAGS faculty development team at Colorado Christian University, one of the schools I teach at. So the next 3 slides are from their material, and I appreciate having access to that. But the first thing you want to do is to stabilize your recording device. I mentioned that I had the webcam on a tripod, and I'll take a picture of that and show you what it looks like. But it really helps to stabilize the recording, so there's no wiggling around. There's no, if the only way this thing would move is if I were to bump my desk. But obviously I'm going to be careful about that. Some people like to stand up when they record their videos. I know when I'm in the classroom, I'm always standing. I like to do my lectures, my conversations, my discussions from the standing viewpoint. When it comes to recording videos, though, I tend to sit down simply because that's where everything's at. So if you do prefer to stand up when you record your videos, make sure that you're putting your recording device high enough up so that you're still looking at it and not down on it, as that first video kind of showed through extreme, and a bad example. So just keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to incorporate gestures. When we're in the classroom, we use our hands, or at least I do. I use my hands to talk. I move around a little bit. When you use a Logitech camera, you can move in and out and the camera stays focused on you. It helps to make it a little more natural. Plus, it's a little more engaging to watch somebody that's moving around rather than standing stoic and never moving, but giving a good information. But you do it this way, then nobody pays attention. So just be natural, however that is for you. Place your camera at an appropriate distance, such as this one is a little bit, it's probably 3.5. It's a little beyond my reach, but that way you get a good overall picture of me. It could be cropped in a little bit, but using Screencast-O-Matic, I don't have the ability to do that, but I can move the camera forward and back a little bit until I get the appropriate distance that I want. Be sure that any visual aids or presentation slides are visible. As you can tell, the slides I've got here, I actually do have it covered up just a little bit, but I can click this to so that I'm hidden and you can see behind where my picture is. Or as I go back to it and show myself again, I can actually move this around too, which is kind of cool. And if you're holding things, like I held the microphone in my hand so you could see what it looked like, that's perfectly all right too. Just make sure that you are able to see everything in your camera shot that you want your students to see. Use proper lighting. I've talked a lot about that already, so I'm not going to say much more here, but just, you might have to bring in an extra desk lamp or something. The one thing that I do have a desk lamp up here pointing up, but I also have a handkerchief with a rubber band around it wrapped around the lamp itself, and that helps to diffuse the light so it's not quite so glaring. So you might find that useful. Be sure you're speaking clearly and loudly. I like to record just kind of a test video to make sure that that my camera shot is good, that my audio is good. So I'll record just a quick 10-15 second and then watch it just to kind of view that. Make sure that you can hear me okay and everything else. Make sure the recording is done properly. Make sure you schedule your time so that you have enough time to do this between preparation, practice, recording, uploading, and then posting it or embedding it. It takes a lot of time to record a video. In fact, my wife was down here just recently checking on my schedule because she's, getting ready to prepare dinner and that kind of thing. And she wanted to know how much more time I needed. And I told her I needed, X amount of time. And so she's backing up or moving dinner back a little bit so that hopefully I'll be done. But the point is that I needed to schedule an entire afternoon to do this video, and then I'm not sure I'm going to be finished because I'll have a little bit of editing to do too. Last thing, review your recording before you publish it. Before you upload it to YouTube or however you're going to use it, make sure you've reviewed the final product. You never know when there might have been something going on behind you that you didn't notice. Or perhaps, in my case, I know one of the videos, I had the ceiling fan turned on. You couldn't see the ceiling fan, but it did create a little bit of a shadow, and that might be distracting, so I turned it off as I recorded these. Just little things like that will help to improve your videos as you go. Now, here's a couple of other suggestions from me based on my experience. First, when I record a general welcome to class video, I record one video and use it in all of my classes at each of the institutions. So in other words, I have a different welcome video at each school, but I use the same video at those schools for all of my classes at each particular school. And in my welcome videos, I talk about, I introduce myself, I talk about my credentials so my students know who I am, what I do, and things like that. But I also share common expectations for discussions and assignments. In other words, I'm going to share things with my students that is valuable to them, valuable information to them so that they'll do well in my classes, regardless of what class it is. So things such as when my expectations for due date posts, or I'm sorry, discussion posts are, some of my expectations for their papers, things like that. But the key thing is to keep it general in nature and not get specific so that I can use that same video in all of my classes. And another way to do that is to always refer to your due dates as days of the week rather than dates in the month. So in my overviews that I do every week, I record a weekly overview of my expectations for assignments for each class. Those are individually done for classes. But I tend to teach the same courses over and over again. So I use those courses. Once I've got a good set of videos, good set of overviews, I tend to use those again and again. And one of the ways I'm able to do that is by referring to due dates and deadlines as days of the week. For instance, I expect your initial response to the discussion to be posted by Wednesday and your assignments be turned in by Sunday. I don't give them specific dates because then next time I go to use a video, I won't be able to use it. Same thing goes if you personalize it every now and again, and I do this, like we're getting ready to go on Thanksgiving break, something like that. I may mention it, but then I have to, next time I teach that class, I have to go in there and edit that portion out. So I use iMovie for that, which works very well. It's a free app on a Mac, and there are different apps for PCs, such as Movie Maker, where you can do these kind of things. And you can edit out things. But in order to do that, I've learned in my recordings that I will take a pause in between certain things. Like I'll talk what I know is pretty general in my overview as far as expectations that are going to be common from class to class every time it's taught. But if there's something specific in there, like such as an upcoming break or something, I will take a pause and then go into it. And the reason I do that is because then it's much easier to split that video there and take out that little chunk so I can still continue to use that video and blend it back together. But that comes with practice, and depending on the app that you're using to edit videos, some of the ones I shared with you earlier are very capable of doing those. So just things to keep in mind, because if you're recording new videos every time you teach a class, you're going to spend a lot of time each week doing that. So that's why I try to do this. But I also keep in mind that every time I teach a course is an opportunity to make it better. So I might record a video that works pretty good this block, but then next block I'm going to re-record it because I've upgraded my equipment, I've refined my technique, things like that. So always look at every time you teach a class as an opportunity to improve on what you did last time. I tell my faculty that I train and coach that not only about videos, but about everything they do. There's been pieces of information that I've put together that I can share with my classes that I shared with them this time that made a big difference in through their assignments or something. So I make sure and keep those and use them again next time. So always looking for opportunities to do things better. So the last thing in this segment is, what do you do with the video file once it's done? Once you've got it recorded, you've done some editing or whatever, do you upload it directly into Blackboard or your learning management system as a raw file? You can do that, but it takes a lot of space on the server. It takes a lot of bandwidth as well. And for whatever reason, it takes an extremely long time to download when you do that. I have some assignments that my students will record for just little 3-minute videos for an assignment. And I show them how to embed the videos just like I'm going to show you in the next part of this training course. But if for some reason 1 or 2 students will upload the video directly into Blackboard instead. And when I go to hit play, instead of streaming the video, it has to download it first. And sometimes it takes 15 minutes or more to download. And they're not that big a file. It just takes a long time. So I do not recommend that you upload videos directly into your learning management style, but instead you upload them to YouTube, as I'm going to share with you in a few minutes. Because uploading them in YouTube, then you can embed the video on Blackboard, which means the video is streamed into the student's Blackboard rather than downloaded onto the computer. And it's much quicker. In fact, you hit play and it starts to play almost immediately. Students can come back to it. They can go to YouTube, the website itself, and bookmark it. They can download it. They can save it to watch for later. There's lots more advantage to uploading it to YouTube than there is to uploading it directly into the course. So we're going to talk about that. in the next part. Part 3, we're going to look at how to upload your videos to YouTube. And then in part 4, we'll get into embedding your video into your course. So I hope you'll join me for that.